This is Cheryl Todd of Gun Freedom Radio.
And I'm the other guy, Dan Todd, reminding you that we and the show you are listening to are proud members of the Self-Defense Radio Network.
Bringing you law, gospel, and guns. Welcome to Armed Lutheran Radio.
Hi folks, welcome to Armed Lutheran Radio, a show about guns, hunting, competitive shooting, the natural right of self-defense, and what God's Word says about the issues surrounding gun rights and gun ownership. I'm your host, Lloyd Bailey, the Armed Lutheran, and this is episode number 131, brought to you by Cook's Holsters, American-made custom Kydex holsters with a lifetime warranty and a 100% satisfaction guarantee, cooksholsters.com. So how was your week? I actually did get to do some gun stuff this week, which is kind of cool. I got out to the range. I mentioned this last week on the show. I wasn't able to hook up with a friend of mine, Yehuda Reamer, the Pew Pew Jew. We had planned to get out to the range last week. We managed to do it this week. That was a lot of fun. Got to shoot guns with Yehuda, and my wife actually concealed carried in public for the first time, which was pretty cool. Now, my wife has been so scared about getting in trouble. She was a school counselor for years. Now she's a stay-at-home mom, so she doesn't have those worries. I'll explain that in a moment. She doesn't practice as much as I do. She's always been worried about doing something wrong or forgetting or not knowing exactly how to handle her gun if she ever needed to. So we got together, laid out all the holster options and all that good stuff, and walked through everything to give her an idea how things felt and what was comfortable. And turns out she felt most comfortable with an inside-the-waistband holster from Cook's Holsters, of course, the one with the Ulti-Clip, because she generally doesn't wear a belt. And she felt most comfortable with a revolver, of all things. Now, years ago back in North Carolina, my wife signed up to take a basic NRA pistol class, and I had convinced her that with her issues trying to rack the slide of a semi-auto, that a revolver, namely my Ruger SP-101, was the best choice. Yes, I was that guy. I was the guy who tried to tell my wife what gun was best for her. I've learned since then, so forgive me my past indiscretions, but she went to the class, and the instructor was able to show her correctly how to rack the slide of a Glock 17, proving that husbands don't always make very good instructors. And before you ask, the slide racking issue is it's a result of two things. It's a result of a lack of practice, which can be overcome, of course, with, practice, and an injury, an old childhood injury to the bone in her thumb on her weak hand, which makes it very difficult to grasp anything with any kind of strength. So on that day, I lost my Glock 17. It became my wife's gun. But she still didn't practice much, and she refused to conceal carry because of her work in public education. Not that that made her opposed to the idea, but she feared making a mistake, forgetting the gun, taking it to school, breaking the law. See, back in those days in North Carolina, if you took a gun within 1,000 feet of school property, you were committing a crime. So she was scared about losing her job and her counseling license and all of that stuff. And that's understandable. But it's different here in Texas. You can walk right up to the school door with your gun as long as you don't step across the threshold or off the sidewalk onto the grass. So I mentioned on the show last year, I think it was, that she bought a gun for herself. It was a Walther CCP, and she took the LTC class, the license to carry class, from our own Aaron Israel. And while Aaron's class was excellent, the gun wasn't. It jammed repeatedly, and again, it was Glock to the rescue, as Aaron ended up giving her his Glock 19 to finish the class. So, on that day, I lost my Glock 19. but she still didn't carry for the same kind of reasons. Fear of forgetting her gun, fear of taking it to work and, leaving it and somebody seeing it, losing her license. See, my wife is the kind of person who forgets things. She forgets her keys, she forgets her wallet, she forgets her cell phone. So that fear kind of colored her view of carrying a gun. So I didn't push really hard. But this summer, I managed to convince her of two things. One, becoming a stay-at-home mom, and two, working toward carrying a gun. Now, like I said earlier, the trick was showing her the gear, laying it all out on the table and letting her see how each option felt inside the waistband, outside the waistband, belly band, pocket carry, what is comfortable, what's comfortable at different positions. And to let her see, too, that no matter how comfortable that carry method is, it's never so comfortable that you're going to forget it. So what we did was to go through this show and tell, and in addition to trying on holsters, was trying out guns and explaining how those different guns work. And what she came out with, what she's most comfortable with, is a revolver. Her choice this time. And once again, I lost a gun. My Smith & Wesson Performance Center 642 is now hers. And it's actually pretty cool, though, because now having Mama Bear locked and loaded backing me up is a nice feeling. She just needs more practice and to get out there and get more comfortable carrying on her own. If you've got any stories about teaching your significant other how to shoot or how to carry concealed, visit the feedback page at armedlutheran.us/feedback and tell us all about it. I would love to hear from you. I would love to hear your experiences with your significant others. Now, we've got tips today from the whole gang and a special guest. Danny and Cheryl Todd are here from Gun Freedom Radio, and they're going to join me later in the show. We've got a tip from Aaron, a tip from Mia, and a tip from Sergeant Bill. And we'll get started with all of that, starting with Aaron Israel's self-defense tip right after this message, so don't go away. I want to take a minute here to thank our partner, the Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network. If you're involved in a situation where you have to use your firearm in self-defense, you very well may find yourself in a legal battle against overzealous prosecutors or the families of the criminal who you shot or threatened, who are looking to deprive you of your freedom or your hard-earned savings. You may find yourself charged with a crime or facing a civil lawsuit even if you did nothing wrong. That's where Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network comes in. For a small yearly fee, they will provide you with money for attorneys, money for bail, consultations, and access to experts like Marty Hayes and Masad Ayub. Don't face the fight alone. Visit Armed Citizens Network today. Use the promo code ARMEDLutheran-25. Save $25 off your first year's membership, or you can grab the coupon on my website, armedlutheran.us. Sign up today. They will send you lots of cool resources, 8 instructional DVDs, and a book by Masad Ayub that I cannot recommend highly enough. Don't wait until you need their help. Be prepared. Sign up today. Visit armedcitizensnetwork.org.
It's time for this week's self-defense tip from Aaron Israel of Fundamental Defense.
Hey folks, this is Aaron Israel with Fundamental Defense here with your personal defense tip of the week. This week I want to talk to you about avoiding confrontations and not getting into petty stuff with people if you are carrying a firearm for personal defense. You've all probably seen the video and the story of the individual Michael Drejka who shot a man in Clearwater, Florida over a parking spot. So what happened is that deputies say Michael Drejka, 47, of Clearwater, confronted a woman who parked in a handicap space outside of a Circle A food store on Sunset Point Road. Witnesses told the deputies that the two were arguing because Drejka was upset the woman parked there even though she wasn't handicapped. The woman's boyfriend, Marquise McLaughlin, 28, of Clearwater, was inside the store to buy his little boy a candy bar, according to the store owner. McLaughlin exited the store to defend his girlfriend and shoved Drejka to the ground. Drejka responded by taking out a pistol and shooting McLaughlin in the chest. McLaughlin ran back into the store where his 5-year-old son was standing at the front door watching the entire incident happen right before his eyes. McLaughlin fell to the ground inside the store and he was pronounced dead at a local hospital. So, armed individual instigates a confrontation over a parking spot. And boyfriend walks outside and sees girlfriend being harassed by guy over parking spot and shoves guy to the ground. So there's a lot of lessons we can learn here. First off, on the part of the guy who came out and shoved the guy to the ground, you don't ever know who you're messing with, right? So it's not a good idea to go instigate things whether you're armed or not. So don't go up and push people, don't go up and get into people's faces, because you don't know who it is that might be armed out in the public space, right? And that guy found out the hard way that this was somebody that he probably shouldn't have messed with, right? Now, I can understand his instinct wanting to stand up for his girlfriend, but sometimes there's very tragic consequences to doing things like that. So if you can avoid confrontations altogether, then you should do that. And you can start by not parking in handicap spaces. So that's it from that guy's side. From the side of the armed citizen, you do not have the luxury of getting into confrontations with people over petty stuff if you are carrying a defensive firearm, because these things have a tendency to escalate. So if you're the type of person who gets your feathers ruffled over people parking in handicap spaces or people leaving their carts out in the Walmart parking lot, that's one of my pet peeves, or people just doing annoying things that annoying, jerky people do in the public space, you need to get over that before you start carrying a defensive firearm, or you could find yourself in a situation like Mr. Drejka finds himself in. So far, he's been not brought up on charges. He wasn't arrested, and the sheriff has come out and spoken about not needing to arrest him and citing the stand your ground law in Florida, which I'm not going to get into the legal debate there. I'll leave that up to the legal experts. You can read some good opinions about it from guys like Andrew Branca and Masad Ayub who've spoken about it, written about it. But I just want to address it from the armed citizen standpoint of this guy is probably not out of the woods yet. Even though the sheriff has not arrested him and he hasn't been charged with anything, when the DA takes a look at it and watches the video that you and I have seen, he may come to a different conclusion, right? And he may, even if he doesn't come to a different conclusion, he may send it to a grand jury, and the grand jury might come to a different conclusion, and then he's going to have to be in front of a jury of his peers and explain why he felt like he needed to shoot somebody over shoving him. Now, you can make the argument that it was a hard shove or whatever, but it's all the things that led up to it. And apparently this guy, from reading other stories, has a history of getting into it with people over parking spots and other petty stuff like that. And you just can't do that if you're an armed citizen. That's just unwise. So if you're a hothead or somebody who can't control their temper, and especially if you're the type of person who will instigate confrontations over petty stuff like parking spots, you really need to get that in check before you even consider carrying a defensive firearm. Because even if this guy thinks he was justified, and even if he was in fear for his life in that moment, think about that part of the story where the guy's 5-year-old son watched him get gunned down out in front of that convenience store. Now, he shouldn't have gone out there and pushed the guy, but do you really want to have that on your conscience that you shot somebody over what started out as a confrontation over a parking spot? I certainly wouldn't want that on my conscience, because I'm not a psychopath, right? And neither are any of you who are listening to this show. And you really shouldn't look at this and take it lightly, the effect that it could have on you psychologically, having killed somebody over something petty like that, when you could have just left well enough alone, or just called the police on the people and let them deal with it, right? Maybe nothing happens. Maybe maybe the police show up and cite them for parking in a handicap spot, right? It's not your job to be the handicap spot police. So fix your mentality before you carry a firearm, and don't instigate confrontations over petty stuff in general, and you're going to avoid a lot of these situations. That's both from the perspective of the guy who got himself killed and from the perspective of the guy who shot him, right? Both of them got into confrontations that they shouldn't have, and it ended in a very tragic situation. That's your personal defense tip for the week. Thanks for tuning in.
Aaron Israel is a Personal Defense Network contributor and owner of Fundamental Defense. You can find out more and sign up for any of Aaron's classes at fundamentaldefense.com.
Hey, if you're like me, you like shopping at gun shows. No pressure from sales staff, no need to bother them to ask to look at stuff. You just pick stuff up and dry fire it and look at it and hold it. Imagine if you could get that experience at your local gun store, where you don't need to bother anybody. You don't have to ask people for help if you don't need it. You don't have salespeople hovering over your shoulders. Well, this is what it's like when you shop at G4G Guns. Cassie and Patrick Coburn are the owners, and you've heard them on the program before. They are absolutely awesome people, and they'll help you find exactly the right gear for you. But there's no sales pressure. You just browse the store, you pick up and hold anything that you want to look at without asking permission, just like at the gun show. And once you've found the gun you want, or if you actually do need assistance, Patrick and Cassie are there to help. It's the best of both worlds, gun shop and gun show, in one place. It really is the best. G for G Guns. They're located at 2035 Central Circle, Suite 108 in McKinney, Texas. They're open Mondays from 1 to 6, Tuesday through Thursday 11 to 7, and on the weekends you'll find them at a gun show near you. Or check them out online at G for G Guns. That's G, the number 4, G, guns.com. G for G Guns, the gallery for great guns. G4Gguns.com. If you follow Mia on Facebook, you know that she loves her morning coffee. The official Dunkin' Donuts shop provides coffee lovers with everything they need, from K-Cup pods, original blend coffee, tea, drinkware, and more. Shop today at www.armedlutheran.us/coffee and help support Armed Lutheran Radio.
Up next, it's Mia's Motivations with Mia Anstein.
Hey you guys, it's great to be here with you again. Today I am going to be a little bit silly, but also pretty serious because firearms, of course, are serious. But a few weeks ago, I shared the brass technique with all of you, and that's a shooting technique for shooting rifles and preparing for the hunt. So it's a breathing, release your air, aim, squeeze, and shoot brass. So brass technique. So the funny thing is that when I sent my piece in to Lloyd, he misread the title and he thought that I had titled it Bras. So it was pretty funny, and we've kind of had a chuckle about that for some time. So today, since he brought up the topic, I want to talk to you about bras. Specifically, I'm going to talk about bra holsters, and I've had a lot of ladies over the years ask me what holster is going to be best for them, what they should try, and so forth. And I've actually talked about this in past episodes, but I want to talk to you specifically about bra holsters. The first one is one that I have that is not necessarily a bra, but there are sports bra ones, and the one that I have is more of an undershirt. It is Undercover Tech's concealment tank shirt, and it has underarm holster pockets on either side of your torso. So they're right below the armpit, and they're low enough where you can put your handgun in there without the butt of the gun poking you in the armpit. This is something, if you're shopping for a holster like this for your wife, or ladies, if you're shopping for one for yourself, you might look at those arm circles and make sure that the holster pockets are low enough where it's not going to jab you in the armpit. So that's something that I know some other holsters I looked at. I have big shoulders, and my shoulders kind of take up the room of those armholes. So this Undercover Tech one definitely has enough room. I carry a 380, and I've also carried my Kimber K6 357 in there. So it's definitely a good holster. One thing I also would like to mention is the fabric of these tanks and these sports bras. It needs to be durable enough to hold the weight of the firearm. Some of these cheap made ones, if you're looking at the pricing and you see something that looks pretty inexpensive, it could be because the fabric isn't sturdy and it's not going to hold that firearm in place when you put it on. So definitely try, and hopefully you could try before you buy. A lot of times we have to just order them because they don't have them in stock at the store and so forth. Something else that I want to caution you about, both with this holster and another one that I'm going to mention to you, is you have to practice your draw with these holsters. You've got to figure out how you're going to reach in your shirt and pull that firearm out without muzzle sweeping your arm or your hip and without inadvertently shooting at yourself. So you have got to practice. The undercover tech tank has a hook and loop type attachment system to keep the gun secure in the pocket. That hook and loop system can be a challenge if you're not practiced in releasing that. There are other systems that have Velcro. Velcro, if the strip is very big, it can be a challenge to release when you have it under layers as well. So keep that in mind when you're shopping for those type of holsters. Another holster is the actual bra holster, and it's Flashbang's holster. It's one they've designed. It attaches actually to the bra, and it's designed to be held in place by the bra. So I mentioned before that you have to have material that's strong enough to hold a firearm. You've got to have a bra that is snug enough on your body and sturdy enough that it's not going to be pulled down when you put a firearm in that holster. And another thing, this holster is designed for the micro carry type of firearms. They do have a variety available for different makes and calibers, so you'll have to research that at Flashbang Holsters. And you definitely need to try that one out and see how it works for you. For me, it prints too much. Both the securement system that attaches it to the bra, the snap on that kind of prints on me, and also the gun itself. The way it's designed is it's held up and it kind of, as you're carrying it, it's pressing into the breast area. So if you're worried about muzzle sweeping, it's definitely going to be sitting there pointed at your body. So those are just some thoughts, some pluses and minuses. If you have the proper body type, I do have a couple friends who are able to carry that Flashbang holster without any problem at all, and they love it. Whereas I said, me personally, it just doesn't fit. Keep that in mind. And Lloyd, you're welcome that I finally talked about bras. I hope you all have a great week, and I hope you find a holster that fits you and that you love. Talk to you later. Bye, guys.
You can read more from Mia and watch her YouTube videos at miaanstein.com.
Let me take a moment to tell you about our membership site, the Reformation Gun Club. Members get exclusive content, all the segments, full-length interviews, full-length episodes of Clinging to God and Guns with extra content not released previously. They're kind of like the movies with the extended cuts or the director's cuts. Oftentimes what we have to do is trim those segments down so we can fit them into a reasonable time in the show, and that means extra content for you as a member of the Reformation Gun Club. You get access to our closed Facebook group, discounts from our partners like Gunbox Gun Safes, Easy to See Targets, Dowtech Force, Cook's Holsters, Talon Gun Grips, Inline Fabrication, much more. So go check it out on Patreon. We've moved to Patreon. Registration is much easier. You get your own unique RSS feed, which means you can paste that into your favorite podcast app and take it with you and listen anywhere. For as little as $2 a month, you can take advantage of all of those benefits and help support the show. Visit patreon.com/armedlutheran or go to gunclub.armedlutheran.us and sign up today.
Time now for another Ballistic Minute with Sergeant Bill Sylvia.
Hey everybody, I'm Sergeant Bill. This is your Ballistic Minute. Today I want to talk about going on vacation. So I went to Florida this last week, and if you have a concealed carry permit and you're going on vacation, you need to check the reciprocity laws and all that good stuff. Being a police officer, not that I don't have to worry about that stuff, but I still need to know how to fly with your gun and, things like that. The biggest thing that I learned was if you're going to like an attraction, we went to the Kennedy Space Center, you should probably contact them ahead of time, even call them if you need to, and find out if they allow you to carry your gun there. And as it turns out, you cannot carry a gun in the Kennedy Space Center, even if you're law enforcement. So we had to walk all the way back through the long parking lot, back to our rental car, take all our gear off, lock them into the glove box, and then walk all the way back and find our group. And it was kind of a pain in the butt, which could have been easily solved by a phone call ahead of time. So don't make that mistake. If you're going to carry your gun and you're going out of state, whether you're flying or driving, doesn't matter. Call ahead to any attractions you may go to and see if you can, so that way you don't have to spend the extra time messing around with having to go store your firearm. I'm Sergeant Bill. This has been your Ballistic Minute.
Sergeant Bill Sylvia is a veteran of the Dallas Police Department and masterclass competitive shooter. You can watch Sergeant Bill's shooting videos at armedlutheran.us/Sergeant Bill.
Hey there, this is Sergeant Bill. After the successful completion of a match, Lloyd and I like to get together and top it off with a celebratory cigar. We get our post-match cigars from Cigar Page, home of America's best cigar deals. Visit armedlutheran.us/cigar and get a great deal. And also, help support Armed Lutheran Radio.
All right, I want to take a minute here to thank our incredible sponsor, Cook's Holsters. They have been with us from day one when this show was just an idea, really, before we even started the podcast. And I was so impressed with Bob Cook and his products that I signed up to become a dealer. I believe in the product so much, I wanted to sell it myself. Cook's Holsters makes custom Kydex holsters for range work, for concealed carry, for competition, inside the waistband, outside the waistband, in a variety of colors and prints and mounting options. Check out the new series of patriotic printed Kydex holsters as well. Those are really cool. And you may be asking yourself, every time you hear me talk about Cook's Holsters, well, what's the big deal? Why should I trust Cook's Holsters when there are so many other Kydex holster makers out there? Listen, Cook's makes the molds and sells printed Kydex that many of the other holster manufacturers actually use to build their holsters. This is a great company. This is a great product. They come with a lifetime warranty against defects, 100% satisfaction guarantee, or your money back. Check them out today at cooksholsters.com. Be sure to use the promo code ARMEDPODCAST, that's all one word, and save 10% off your order. Go to cooksholsters.com today. Welcome back to Armed Lutheran Radio. As I've said many times before, if you know anything about gun culture, you know that the majority of those people who consider themselves part of that culture, the collectors, the hunters, the competitors, the activists and instructors, they're all just really, really nice people. Courteous, outgoing, passionate about whatever they're involved in. Two of the absolute nicest people you would ever meet on this planet are my guests today. They are the co-owners of AZ Firearms, the biggest little gun shop in Arizona, and they're the co-hosts of Gun Freedom Radio. Danny and Cheryl Todd are with us. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Lloyd, so much for having us. And the check will be in the mail for all those nice words. This is Cheryl, obviously.
Yes, thank you very much. It's great to be here.
Let's start out by talking about yourselves. Tell us, you mentioned that you're the activist side and Danny's the gear guy. You're the gunsmith in the family. So tell us a little about how you both got involved in guns before the store, before the radio show and the public appearances. Were you guys raised around guns, or did you get into guns later in life?
Well, I like to call it BC, before Cheryl. I used to have a gun shop years ago, but I just couldn't get it to work with the previous owner. It was a mess. So I kind of got out of guns. Then I met Cheryl and we got married. And we've been married for 33 years. And, there was no guns in the house. Cheryl's had a background with guns. I had a background with guns, but I just got kind of burnt out with it for a while. Mm-hmm. And then one day, her brother took me to a gun shop and said, "You need to buy a gun." So I thought, okay. I bought a Glock 35. And about 4 months later, I had 300 guns.
He's not kidding.
I'm not kidding. We have an extra bathroom in the house. I took the commode out and covered it, and I used that for a gun safe. And just when they couldn't come out, you couldn't open the door. I told Cheryl, I said, you know what, maybe we ought to do just one more thing. We were kind of semi-retired. So I was going to open a gun shop and a museum because I have a lot of military collectibles.
Right.
And, I bought a building and we started putting the gun shop together and didn't have any money left over. And I go, a museum's not going to cut it. So we decided to open an auction house. And that's kind of what we did. And so now we have the gun shop and the auction house, Pot of Gold Auctions. And that's what started it. And then Cheryl, she loves a microphone. So what can I say?
Oh, don't make me sing.
So do you have a background in broadcasting or radio?
Not at all. No. Now, growing up, I was always a singer, in church choir and, school choir. And I was always a soloist, that kind of thing. So I understand stage presence. I understand, voice inflection to kind of tell a story through, whatever it is you're doing, whether you're, giving a speech or whether you're singing or, of course, I was in drama too, a little drama kid. So that's really the only training that would directly apply to what we do on the radio. And Dan doesn't have any background in that either. And
but that's really noticeable. So there's a difference.
Oh, stop it. What's so interesting and cool and awesome is that, God just opens doors and uses you in ways that you never expected to. And you just have to be willing to step through the doors that he opens. And this is such a fun and interesting moment and work that he has me doing.
Right. And Lloyd, another thing too, Cheryl and I, we've been together for all these years and we have never been afraid to take the next step. Mm-hmm. It's super important because we got to where we are today, which I'm very happy with because we weren't afraid. I don't know if we were foolish or what, but we just weren't afraid to try anything. No?
So you've been together for 33 years now, and congratulations for that. That is awesome. I'm going to have to ask you for some tips on that. I'm at 25. I've got a little ways to go to catch you. Are your kids involved are they involved in the business? Are they involved in the gun culture side of it?
So our daughter, we have one child. It's a girl child. It's, she's 20, she'll be 29 in September, but she, grew up in all of our adventures. We've had multiple different businesses, mom and pop, retail things. And, she just grew up in it. She knows the feast, she knows the famine, and she knows that, basically every conversation about everything is somehow tied to work and what we do. So thank goodness she does enjoy being part of the family business, and she manages the auction house, Pot of Gold Estate Auctions.
Awesome.
And she has truly, truly earned what she does. She brings so much value to what we do. She's not, the thing that people think of, the typical owner's kid who just kind of, works there just because she's related. As a matter of fact, she wanted to come work for us several years ago, and Danny was always like, yes, that's what I want. It's what I've always dreamed of. And I'm like, no, I don't want to be her boss. I want to be her mom, and I want to be, now that she's an adult, I want to be her friend. I don't want to be the person she goes home griping about every night. And, and so we had a big family meeting. And she kind of put the full court press on, what she could bring to the table, on and on and on. And we left the meeting with, I am so sorry, but I'm really strong on this, that I don't want we have a great relationship and enjoy being with each other. The answer is no. So then, but we were in a hiring season. So then Dan and I go home. And we're just kind of going over, all right, so what are we going to put on the help wanted ad? We need this skill set and that skill set and that one and that one. And I'm like, oh, you know who I just described?
Exactly.
I just described Cassie. So we brought her on, and she loves telling this story that we brought her on. And I said, if it gets weird between us, you've got to quit. Don't make me fire you. If we get into a season where we can't afford staff, you're the first that gets cut. Like,
right.
It was not a warm, like, oh, come on into the fold. It was like, you're going to really, really have to bring it. And we're going to really have to be intentional about this. And, it's not Shangri-La. But what's funny is that, who butts heads and fights the most? Her and her dad, the one that wanted her to be there.
Oh, me?
Oh. Crazy. And then they've got our one and only grandchild, who is 4 and just way
Adorable.
so much fun. Thank you. We have just a blast with her.
So,
Raylan.
So to answer the rest of that question, why is Cheryl and I doing the radio show? First of all, I want to tell you that in the 60s, and 70s, my dad was very much fighting for our gun rights. And I kind of just sat in the back side of it, and I really didn't get involved. I didn't understand what all of it meant. But anyway, so he was real active in it. And after he passed away, I kind of thought, man, I wish I would have carried that on, but I have no idea what to do. Anyway, so we had been advertising on a local radio station for our gun shop and auction house. Mm-hmm. And we got to know one of the guys that's a radio host, and he likes guns, and he says, hey, would you come on the show? So we went on the show a couple times and talked. And, our head started spinning around. I said, we could be part of your show. And he said, okay, that'd be good. And we made an agreement to have a year's contract to be on this Get Outdoors show. And Cheryl and I would be on there. We'd talk for like 15 or 20 minutes every Saturday. And that was going good. But then the station goes, we don't like guns.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
So they asked us, they said, we're not going to cancel the contract, but we're not going to renew it. And I said, well, if you're not going to renew it, then we're just going to go. Now, at that time, we had another person driving the show.
Mm-hmm.
Then I go, okay, we left. And I went straight to a AM radio station, and we started doing podcasts, doing the show there. And
Right.
when Cheryl does something, the only way she does it is the best it can be done.
Mm-hmm.
And so I challenged her. I don't think she knew she was really getting into it first, but I said, you're going to like this, And so we started doing an hour show, and it was going good. But then, an hour wasn't enough. So let's do 2 hours. And then we did that for quite a while, but we were finding that our listeners were mostly listening to us on our website.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't, AM radio was not reaching out far enough for us, but the website was doing really good. So we went to Worldwide Productions, went to a conference there and picked them out, and they are a web-based live show, and we got involved with them, and we love it. And so that's why Cheryl's doing what she's doing, and we're really working hard to make sure that people understand our side of the gun story.
Well, that is awesome. So how did the activist side of it beyond the radio station happen? I mean, Cheryl, you're on Stenchcombe, you're on Cam and Company, you're speaking at the Gun Rights Policy Conference. How did the activist part of it beyond the radio show get started?
Well, so even when we opened the gun shop, it was really that was sort of Danny's end of things, because he understands the equipment, knows the equipment, grew up with it, has like an encyclopedic knowledge in his brain about it. And I was more on the auction house side.
Right.
And so just as the election came along, when President Obama was elected, we were only about 2 years old in our shops at that time.
The first time he was elected.
The first time.
Oh.
And to see what was being said every single day about basically who we are as gun owners. Mm-hmm. And what we represent as gun store owners, right? So we were just normal business people one day. The next day, we're like the purveyors of death,
Right.
and then, for a while, something would happen and we'd be like, the heroes, and so grateful that there's people that are, protecting our Second Amendment rights in this way. And then we'd be the purveyors of death again. And we just kept riding this roller coaster. And I began to realize how not informed I was, how irresponsible it was of me as an American citizen to not be as informed of what my rights are, what the laws are, that sort of thing, and how important all of those things are when you see that, the election where President Obama came in, and I'm thinking the whole time as he's campaigning, I'm thinking, he's a junior senator. He doesn't really have a lot of, experience, and like he's going to run an entire country, and that's never going to happen. And then it did.
It did.
And I'm like, okay, I need to not only educate myself, but realize that if I have questions, then there's other people that have the same questions. Mm-hmm. And to understand that we all have a circle of influence, but how limited is that, right? And so I could talk to my friends and my, church people and, my family, and some of my customers, but there was such a greater opportunity to have the conversations and for me to think, gosh, pick somebody that I've had on my show that has an expertise. Like if we could just really ask them the questions that I'm wondering, that mm-hmm. other people are probably wondering, how awesome would that be? And then for people to say yes to me, like that always floors me. I'm like, do you know who I am? I'm like nobody, but thank you so much for coming on my show and, asking me to speak at your event. And it's really incredible to me because I do feel like I'm every person, I'm every woman. And I just have taken a natural curiosity and a hunger to learn more and grow in these areas and try to bring people along with me and mm-hmm. to have a microphone that increases that circle of influence. I can't imagine any other time in history that I would have been able to have the impact that I've been able to have, because even reaching people, I was just telling somebody today that I'll see somebody being interviewed on Fox News. I can pick up my cell phone, my smartphone. I can go to their Facebook page. I can send them a messenger message through Facebook, say, hey, I've got this radio show. Would you be my guest? Blah, blah, blah. And I can hear back a yes from them by the end of the show, by the end of the Fox News show. I'm like, when could that have ever happened? Ever.
No, ever.
Lloyd, what she's trying to say to you is this. When Obama got elected the first time, we didn't grab a security blanket. What we did, we grabbed the Constitution and a microphone.
Nice.
Yep, exactly.
I like what you did there.
Yep.
That was good.
Nice.
Sometimes I come with stuff.
He says it so much more concisely than I do. That's why we need 2 hours, because I'm the one talking.
Right.
Oh.
How did you get involved with the DC project? Tell us first off about the project, what it is, and how you got involved in it.
Mm-hmm. So the DC project is 50 women, one from each state, who get together in our nation's capital at least one time a year. We make appointments with our individual legislators and go in and just meet with them, just form relationships with them and let them see the face of the Second Amendment that most people don't even know exists. And, we're moms, we're wives, we're grandmas, we're business owners, we're competitive shooters, we're, all manner of, we're like everyone. And this was a brainchild of Diana Muller, who is a professional 3-gun competitive shooter.
Right.
But her job before that was she was a 22-year veteran of the Tulsa Police Department. And so she was feeling a lot of the same ways that I was feeling, like, why am I vilified? Why is what I do vilified? Why is the tool that I use to save my life or to hunt for food or to, whatever the different things are, to enjoy an afternoon out with my friends and family, why is that vilified? She said, I'm going to talk to my legislator and I wish that I could go to every single office in these buildings. And then she said, well, that would be amazing, but I'm only one person. But what if I got one person from each state? Now we've got something.
If I had 49 sisters, we could do it.
Yes. And that's the DC project. And when I first heard about it was basically when she had just kind of had her what if moment. And it was at SHOT Show. What would it have been? Maybe 3 years ago. And I heard about it from someone else who had been, thinking about working with her, wasn't sure exactly what this whole thing was about, but he said enough to me that I was like, okay, first I have to meet this woman and interview her on the radio show. And I got to be involved. Like, I don't know what she's looking for. I'm not a competitive shooter. Maybe she only wants competitive shooters. Like, and then I reached out to her and I just basically said, can I just be a fly on the wall? Can I be your media voice? What can I do? She said, what state are you in? I said, Arizona. She said, I don't have an Arizona lady yet. You're in. And I said, oh, and by the way, how about I bring my daughter and granddaughter too? Because,
Right.
We just run like that. And she, of course, was like, absolutely, this is your journey, so make it your own. And everything we do with our businesses, with our family, with the work we do, it's all about legacy. It's all about whatever we do or don't do in this lifetime is going to reverberate forward. So if I can include Cassie in, she's learning as I'm learning, and then it'll just be part of Raylan's life. She's 4 now. She doesn't really know what we're doing except for having fun and taking a lot of selfies,
Right.
in front of the Capitol building.
Lloyd, you didn't ask me why I got involved with the DC project.
I'm going to guess it has something to do with your anatomy.
No. I got involved with the DC project because you know how many pieces of luggage
there is
she
that.
needs to carry to that Washington DC?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm the official luggage carrier of the DC project.
You're the porter for the Arizona contingent of the DC project.
And nobody could do it better, babe.
Yeah.
You're just amazing at that. But it's been incredible because when we make these appointments and walk into these offices, we go in like teams of 4 or 5. And so I'll take the New York delegate and the Maryland delegate and the Colorado delegate into my Arizona legislator's office. And then I get to go into those offices. And it is it's amazing, educational, eye-opening, and a little bit mind-blowing when you live in a state like Arizona where
we're free.
Yeah, where we have the Constitution.
Right.
To walk into like a New York legislator's office and just the way that they speak about things like it's natural and normal to infringe on your constituents' rights.
I started to say, what is that experience like? Because to actually sit down in their office face to face with somebody who is, for the most part, not on your side, what kind of a reception do you generally get?
So it's always cordial, and we are not there for an ask. We are not lobbyists. We are just there to, basically say, we just want you to know that we exist, and we want to be a resource for you. So if you say you're going to give a speech, and we're talking to the legislator now, you're going to give a speech and you're not quite sure how to phrase this thing or what that thing is called or whatever, please use us as a resource because it's good for everybody if there's good information out there. And, basically that is kind of the basis of the conversation. Then we end up generally getting into one issue or another. And the New York office last year, the thing that just I can't stop thinking about is that the person said, and this was a staff member, not the actual elected official, which sometimes we get to speak the elected official and sometimes it's a staffer, and it's great either way. We don't feel slighted if it's not the actual elected official. They said, well, it's just not palatable to our police officers for the citizenry to be walking around with firearms. And
what?
Yeah, palatable. I've looked in the Constitution everywhere, and nowhere in there did I see that it has to be palatable to the police force. And my response was, which he didn't even have to listen to me, so I appreciated that he allowed me a moment to speak because I'm not his constituent. But I said, so here's what I would say. I get that, it's not part of the culture of New York. It probably seems odd to you to think about that citizens would just be able to open carry or conceal carry. But I said, look at the state I come from. It is a real life, in real time experiment in how it really goes with citizens being able to have constitutional carry, open carry, concealed carry. We don't even have to get concealed carry licenses. And our crime rates are consistently coming down. So if I could just leave you with that, then I'll feel heard and I appreciate your time. And that's kind of how that one went. And then this year we sat down in, I can't remember what state it was right this second, and it was a Republican. And this is an example of why you can't just check the R or the D when you walk into the voting booth. You've got to know what the issues are and know how you want this person to represent you and trust that they will represent you the way you want to be represented.
Right.
And this person was a Republican, but he was advocating the entire time we were in there for us to, compromise. That if we just don't compromise, we're not going to get anywhere. And I said, well, is the other side ever having that sentence come out of their mouth? No, they're not. And we have been compromising since 1968.
1934.
1934. Thank you. And every time we compromise, it's like, nope, that's not enough. Oh, why don't you compromise? Let's compromise some more.
I get so tired of that argument that we've got to, and the Republicans who talk that way are so scared, so they lose their spine as soon as they get to Washington.
Amen to that.
The way I feel about it, and I might lose track here, but okay, all these people that control the government, they listen to the citizens, and guess who's crying the loudest right now? It's the anti-gunners, the pro-rights restrictors. They are the ones that are the highest voice, and so that's influencing them because they don't want political suicide.
They're the loudest voice.
Yeah, they're the loudest voice. And they don't want political suicide. And a lot of Republicans that aren't 100% gun, they don't understand what laws are coming before them. And so that's why it's important that, I went to some of the D.C. things, and I've talked to senators and congressmen, and just putting your opinion out there, whether you're talking to the aide or talking to the governor or whoever, it does help because a piece of that stays in their head somewhere. And then when something happens about guns, they remember you. And so we have to be a voice. When we were kids, we were taught, don't talk about guns. Don't say we have guns in the house. Don't put NRA stickers on your truck, all of this stuff. And so my generation didn't do that. And then when we got older, we kind of kept the guns in the closet, went out shooting every while, but we hit them when we put them in the truck and whatever. Now I want to voice my opinion. We used to say, I have an auction house and real quietly a gun shop. Now we say we have a gun shop and an auction house and we're proud of it. And we need people to voice that. I
see it in a little bit differently because when I grew up, everybody was driving around with the gun racks in the back of their trucks. And nobody saw that as weird.
Right.
And what changed? Suddenly we can't be trusted with our rights when they weren't as restrictive when we were growing up. And yet now we have these school shootings and these mass shootings, and it's because of the guns. But the guns are more restricted than they've ever been, so it can't be that. Something else has changed.
Well, I look at the way parents treat their kids. A kid that's self-sufficient, the parents don't put as much time into that kid as they do the one that's having the problem child. So these people that are running around with the security blankets, and I think the world's going to end because Trump's our president, they're scared and they're screaming with the top of their lungs that we got problems, and they're listening to them.
I guess. Yeah. I think what you've asked is such a great question, and someday we're going to figure it out. And even my background's even in psychology. So you'd think that I would at least have some intelligent sentence to provide to you, but I really don't. It just seems the culture changed. It is a cultural shift. Our movies have actually gotten more violent than when we were kids, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like we're less exposed to firearms, but maybe the way we're exposed to firearms has shifted so dramatically that it really does come across as though only gang members or bad guys or gangsters or I don't
Yes.
Yeah, but fear.
They're the only ones that actually have guns because maybe we aren't out hunting as families as much anymore and target shooting and seeing the real true fun and life-saving and good parts about owning guns. I don't maybe.
Yeah, I think that dovetails with what you were just talking about with the Republicans that you were talking to that were kind of squishy. Like you said, everybody on the anti side is screaming really loud right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's being amplified by our media, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who are entirely anti-gun.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've talked about this on my show quite a bit, that a lot of these people who are so anti-gun, their frame of reference for guns is what they see in the news and in the media. And what's being portrayed in those things? All the negatives.
Yeah, all the negatives.
But
the whole shaming, like the gun shaming part, like I'm not real sure how that got started. But I mean, I wrote a blog a couple years ago, I think, that it's like coming out of the closet as a gun owner was way harder than coming out of the closet as, a homosexual.
You're celebrated if you do that,
right?
But you're shamed if you're a gun owner,
right? And it's like even if your friend, your neighbor is afraid of guns but is kind of interested or curious, he can't admit that because the neighbor on the other side is going to shame him, right? Mm-hmm. Because we're like the plague or something.
So we were talking about this earlier about the media and the narrative that is being forced on us constantly. I mean, talk a little bit about the current gun rights debate that is going on right now in the country. You're traveling to DC. You're talking about these issues. There are times when it just feels like the deck is stacked against us. Like there's like the country is turning against us. Now, I'm not sure that's the case. Do you see it that way? If you're just getting the news and you're just hearing what the media is feeding us, you would think that the country there's going to be this great wave of anti-gun sentiment. Is it really like that out there in the hinterlands?
My experience is no. And I agree with you that the news is hard to watch. It's exhausting. It's discouraging.
It's repetitive.
Oh my gosh, so repetitive.
Oh yeah.
But if that was all I knew, then last year when we were experiencing really low sales, because people did kind of slip into apathy, they're like, oh, President Trump's going to protect our gun rights, so I don't need to go support my local gun shop. And I'm like, please buy some ammo because we'd like to keep our doors open.
Right.
So last year when we weren't certain was there going to be a normalizing of our sales, we would have just given up if all I knew was what the news told me. But by interacting with other people, by going to events, I'll give you two examples. Like when I go to like the SHOT Show, that's the big industry event every January in Las Vegas. And when I look at the people, like I said, my background is psychology. I'm just always very curious about, people and what is that guy's background? Like what brought him here? And, that kind of thing. And I watch a lot. And I come away from that show having experienced, talked to, and been around. Now, these are people in the gun industry, so I'm aware of that. But they are of every demographic you can imagine. They are of every socioeconomic ability, or however I would phrase that. They are from all over the entire world, and they are the most normal, middle America, for the ones that are from America, just your average people. And I look at that, the huge expanse of it, and the thousands upon thousands of people, and I think, this is who we are. We are not who we're portrayed as on the news, and it encourages me. And then the other piece of this is the whole time that the 2016 election was ramping up. And once I realized that, oh, no, Trump really is serious, because I'm one of the ones that originally thought, I don't know if this is for real or not, But once I realized he really was serious, and he was causing people to have conversations about, well, even if he's serious, are you going to vote for him? That kind of thing. people would out loud say, oh, no, he's a joke, whatever, but then quietly whisper to me, I'm voting for him because he's going to protect our rights. And the other side, the only other choice, there's no way.
Right.
And then other people were they just loved what they felt he stood for, and that he was a businessman, and that he was going to run the government like a business, and it just made more sense, and all those kinds of things. And so when we see how that election went, I think that that's a similar analogy to what is happening with our gun rights. It's so scary to say out loud that I own guns, I like guns, I enjoy guns, I'm about to go buy another gun. That's scary to say out loud because of the gun shaming. But then quietly, people are living their life and enjoying the sport and supporting each other. And so I do truly believe that it is extremely loud minority, and they're so uninformed, misinformed, spreading nonsense information, that it's such a thin veneer that if anybody does take even a second to question and verify the stuff that they say, immediately you see how foolish they are. And nobody wants to willingly attach themselves to nonsense and foolishness.
Before we go, I have to ask about the polka dots. You didn't think I was going to let you off the hook without asking. Whenever I see you, the signature look is polka dots. And now whenever I see polka dots, it doesn't matter where, I think Cheryl Todd.
Well, thank you for that. I really appreciate that. It wasn't an intentional thing. It just kind of happened. I didn't even realize I owned that many dresses that had polka dots until other people started commenting. And it was Charlie Cook, actually, of Riding Shotgun with Charlie, who kind of brought it to my attention one time that I wear polka dots a lot. And so not long after that, I gave a speech where I was talking about, the ordinary warriors, that's what we are. Every one of us is, an ordinary person who is a warrior in some way for some cause. And for me, of course, it's the Second Amendment. And the analogy I was using was a grave site that had just recently been found at the time, an ancient grave site for a Viking warrior who happened to be female. And the only reason it was really newsworthy is because this warrior was female. And so I just kind of, painted this story in my speech about, I like to kind of picture her, that the enemy wouldn't quite know how to size her up. And maybe she was wearing a pretty polka dot dress and confused them just long enough to strike them down in battle. And so that's just kind of where it went. And then I made up the hashtag that because of that, polka dots are my camo, because nobody sees me across the room and goes, oh, there's one of those crazy gun people.
Right. Exactly. That's the great thing about what you and so many the female voices in the gun rights community are. They're changing the stereotype that the media likes to present, that gun owners are like me and Danny and nobody else.
But I got smart, and I'll tell you how. These guys that go around and they don't get their wives involved with guns, and they have to sneak around to buy guns, right?
You don't have that problem.
You get your wife involved in guns, she's going to be telling you, when are you going to go buy another gun? Right? It's no different than a dress or a purse or anything else. But if you hide it from them, they're going to say, what'd you buy another gun for? You got two. Right? So now there's, and that's what happened with Cheryl and I.
So tell us how people can find out more about Gun Freedom Radio and about your businesses.
Well, thank you so much for having us on and for asking that. We are at gunfreedomradio.com. And when you go there, you can click the on-demand tab and listen. I like to say, binge listen to your heart's content. I think we have all of 121 episodes. We still have our training wheels on. So it's been really great. And then you can tell them about it.
And then we also have, if you want to look at some really cool guns, I guess if you want to buy one, it's okay. But azfirearms.com. And then also the auction house is potofgoldestate.com, and we have auctions twice a month, and we usually have 30 to 50 guns in every auction.
Well, we will include links in the show notes and encourage everybody to check it out. They are the dynamic duo of the gun rights world. Be sure to check them out every week on Gun Freedom Radio and visit azfirearms.com or stop by and speak howdy if you're in Avondale, Arizona. Danny and Cheryl Todd, it's been too long. We should have done this a long time ago. Thank you so much for coming on the show, and Christ blessings to both of you.
Thank you very much.
Christ blessings to you as well. Thank you so much, and we got to have you back on our show like now.
I would enjoy that very much. Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
And that's going to wrap it up for this week's show. Thank you all for listening, for downloading, for subscribing. Thank you to our fine sponsors who make all this possible. Thank you to my awesome cast of contributors. And thank you, dear listener, for listening, for downloading, for subscribing. I hope you'll join us again next week. Until then, keep shooting, keep praying. We'll talk to you next time.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Armed Lutheran Radio. For show notes, be sure to visit our website at www.armedlutheran.us. You can subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher Radio, and TuneIn. This podcast is made possible by Cook's Holsters and contributions from listeners like you.